There we go. Sorry about that. This is meant to be more of a overview of some of the mechanics in the game. If you want to see a full gameplay though, I'll probably start doing that soon. I'd like to make an edited video, but I don't have any software currently, so I'm just gonna stream this. And I'm gonna go over some of the things in the game. So starting first, I'm gonna go over all the races in the game. So there are 7 clans. And so let's start with our, I guess, 3 main characters. As you can see, this is my main team. You level up throughout the game, and I will make when I make a video of the campaign, I'll do a level by level kind of sort of thing. And it'll be hopefully very fun. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over starting with our 3 main characters, Rian. So he's a stone and wood fighter. And so each and every character has, you know, different attributes to them. So each clan has a special power. Like for the Stone and Wood Rian's clan, they have a 10% higher critical chance to hit things and do critical damage, which is really good if you want to make like something that does high damage. So there's 3 different classes, which I'll get into later, but then the next would be, I believe, the Vaprin. I want to go over them next. So the Vapra have this amazing ability of the Vapra clan gain 10% bonus stats from equipment, which is really not that great in the early game because you usually start out with little to no equipment. But if you like deal with it rather than picking like some class that has really strong starter abilities and you keep it up as you get towards the late game, that power will become better and better. Like sometimes towards the end of the game you get to control a character named Tavra for a little while. She's Brea's sister. If you've seen the series, you'll know that. And she had the soldier trait. She was in the soldier class, and she did really good because, or she was in the paladin class, which stems from that, which allowed her to do really, really high, you know, damage and get extra bonus stats from equipment. And so that's important because equipment can have all of these stats. There's kind of no limit on what random stuff you can get. And so that goes for all equipment, not just armor, which is really good in the late game. So then there are the Sifa, who they have the Changing Winds clan ability, which allow them to get like an attack up and magic up while under 50 HP. So they get extra damage when they fall below 50% health, which is good in a crunch. Greg is also Vapra, so they get their 10 bonus stats. Gurjin is a Drenchin. That's our 4th clan? No. Yes, 4th clan. So then there's Gurjin, who's a Drenchin, and they're immune to poison, which is great kind of in the early game, especially as you go through the Swamp of Sog. I'm not going to play this full fight, but I will show you real quick. In the Swamp of Sog, there's water, and if you stay in it, you get poisoned. And so I have Naya, who would be immune to that, so she can just run across, and my other characters can go up across bridges or stuff. So if you find yourself having like a lot of issues with poison damage, it'd be good to have a Drenchin. I know I early on had a lot of that, and there are seals that you can use that can stop other like other debuffs like Stun, Root, and Silence. So you can kind of build like a really resilient character if you decide to use a Drenchin, if that's your thing. So then there are the Spiriton, and I believe Kylan's the only Spiriton you can get. And so they have the ability of the Crystal Guardian, because them and the Stone and Wood are the closest to the castle, right? which allows them to gain extra magic and defense when they level up, so they scale pretty well. So the higher level you get, the higher magic and magic defense you get. Now, that's great. I chose Spiriton to be a scout, which is not the magic ability at all, so I kind of wasted that, but it's okay. And so then, the only Doosan is right here, which you get around the Crystal Desert, but they have 5% accuracy and evasion, which means they're more likely to hit, and they're more likely to evade certain attacks. And then finally, out of the 7 clans, there's Deet. I don't think I missed a clan. The Groton, so she's part of the Groton clan, and they're immune to blind. So that's really good. Kind of like how the Gentry are immune to poison. So that's pretty good. I think blind makes you more likely to miss, if I remember correctly, when you're in a fight. So then there are 2 other races in the game that you can play. There are Fizzgigs, who have their own set of jobs and abilities. Not this Fizzgig. So the Fizzgigs usually come with a set job. So there's a Fizzgig medic named Boggy that you can get. And there's Wookie, who's a herder. So it's more of an attack. As you can see, it has this little symbol, which reminisces with their primary ability. That's basically what it means. But they're more of kind of like an attack Fizzgig. And so you get all of these characters as you go through. Most of these characters are characters you get as you go. And honestly, I kind of stuck with the starter characters myself. The only characters that are starters that I started to use more and more were Bogey, who I took with me because they have this cool ability called Insistent Bark, which can revive a character. Which you can get from, you know, your healer if you choose this job, but you get it faster with Bogey. So that's good. Or Boggy, sorry. And then there's Ivo, who's a song teller, who is, I believe he's Sifa. Yes. Who I also grabbed. But then there's Podlings, and Podlings have their own job classes. Potion Master, Tamer, Podling Paladin, Cook, and Musician. I do not know the best about the Podling classes. So I'll have to learn about that and make a different video later because I only used Gelfling in my main class. I did use Hup in the early game, so he's really useful in the early game for his Paladin ability, and if you have Tamer as a secondary job, which allows you to call a pet who you can use to attack. But I found that I didn't use Hup enough for him to level quickly in his Tamer abilities. I focused more on his Podling Paladin abilities, which actually weren't that helpful, and everything else kind of out-leveled him eventually, and so I kind of stopped using him. Now I'm sure if you switch to Tamer, he'd probably be a lot more useful because he could probably summon a more powerful Nurlock than I could because I didn't have it at a high enough level. But he's really, really, really powerful in the early game, and I know he can be powerful in the late game. I didn't use him right my first time around. Pondo's a musician, who can also do Potion Master. Really good. There's a bunch of types of, abilities in the game, which I can go over some of the best ones that I dealt with, and I can go over that at a later time. So, for now I'm gonna go over how some of these weapons work. So, there are different types of weapons, and they do different types of things. Now I'm seeing if it'll give me an overview to read it, but I don't think it will. which means probably have to write it down next time. If I can't, I'll be a little sad. But, so, I can't remember all of their different, like, special things that each weapon does, but each weapon has a different specialty, basically. Which you can usually kind of see in their stats. So axes give you like recovery bonuses. Swords are just basic, they're normal attack, they do better with attack usually. If you do a spear, your accuracy is usually up and your critical chance is usually up at the sacrifice of some damage. So there's swords that do damage, they're kind of the normal weapon, you don't usually want to use them if you can avoid it. I'd recommend maybe using an axe and you get better recovery and way more damage. However, having a higher recovery isn't always a great thing. Like, for example, Naya, I kind of put her into a full tank mode, where she's in a full soldier spec, and she uses an axe, which kind of sets her back a bit. Her turn, so each turn is like kind of, I think, depicted by, or decided by your recovery, and so, you know, she doesn't take her turn as often. She takes her turn way less than any other character. Like, Kylan has a recovery of 61, and so he takes his turns really, really fast. And so does Ivo. He has a really small recovery, so he goes even quicker than Kylan. So Ivo and Kylan go like nearly 3 times before Naya goes once. 2 to 3 times. But Naya can do 200 to 400 damage, whereas Kylan can do way less than that. Maybe 200 sometimes. Unless you use special abilities. So that's how that works. 1 second, so I can open the equipment shop. So axes bump up your recovery and make you move slower, but they do a ton more damage. Pikes increase your accuracy, so like your chance to hit well and not, you know, slight them and do less damage, and the higher critical chance. Then there are daggers, which do okay damage, but they make you move, you know, faster. They let your turn go quicker. And so Kylan, I believe, has knives currently. He used to have a spear, and that's when he did higher damage. But now I have him using knives, so he moves faster. And I'll explain why I did that later. And then there's staves, which are usually used for characters with like the mage, or I guess, what's it called in the game? I know it's not mage, but they're basically mages. They're like sages, basically. It's the Mender, Bramble Sage, Adept, and Songteller spec. So you can use staff to have like higher magic damage and mana points, and each staff's different. And usually, 1 second. Okay, I had to sneeze and then I couldn't. There's a 20% MP gain on hit, so they do very little damage. When you hit, you're lucky if you do like 10 damage. But you get MP back, and what is MP? MP is like basically, it's basically your mana points, right? So, an example, I'll run to the Spirit Village real quick, and also when those things are blue, that means no matter how many times you beat them, they're there. They're kind of help you scale lower level characters if you need to. Oh wait, okay, I'll throw D over here. A lot of this game is actually, how you specifically put characters together. I put Ivan and Kylan together, because they work really well together in terms of how I have their abilities laid out. So as you can see, there's MP down here, and if you use a special ability, it costs MP. right? I'm going to show you an ability real quick. So this is a special ability called Mark that you want to work into your characters. Especially when you're fighting Skeksis, because they have a lot of abilities that are... they're immune to a lot of abilities, like stun. Some of them are immune to stun. And so you want to get this thing called Mark, and they have high health, and Mark, allows you to do combos that do a lot of damage. So I'm just going to show you real quick, since Ivo's turn is so soon. As you can see, they both go twice before Naya can go once. Because I have her. Hi. So if I move Ivo over here, you can use a combo ability called Scathe to hit damage a marked target. And there's a ton of spells like this that you can only damage someone if they're marked. And so you can do like 300 damage. And under certain circumstances, like with the Skeksis, I could do 400 to 500 damage, and that could, like, in the final battle, that could be like a third of their health. So, you can usually hit half of their health with Scathe, and it's really important to just use Marked as combos. But, so, MP, you gain 20% MP back if you run out of MP, like, you know, if you saw Deet there. She uses spells mainly, and when she runs out of MP, she can't use her spells, so her only choice is to really either have someone who has a spell that can give her MP, or for her to go up and hit someone, which can be dangerous because she's kind of squishy as a character. Then there's the Secret Codex, which gives you just magic bonuses and no mana points. And you can't hit anything with it to get mana back, so you need something that can refresh your mana points. But you can have a long-ranged basic attack that doesn't cost MP. Each one gives you one. Then there's utensils, which can only be used by podlings, and they just do damage. They're like a sword. And then there's, you know, guitars, which are basically just, you know, kind of like the podling sword for magic. Then there's each type of armor, which just, you know, affects their defense and stuff, and certain characters can wear certain kinds. That's all you really need to know about most equipment, other than trinkets. Trinkets allow you to be immune to certain things, like Wounded, which does damage over time, Poison, which does damage over time, Blindness, which slices your accuracy. You can have a Writ of Protection, which basically gives you Barrier and Shell, which are kind of defensive things. Shield of Resilience gives you Stun, makes it so you can't get stunned or rooted. Or Silenced. Silence makes you lose all of your special abilities. Root makes you stuck in a spot so you can't run away. If you get rooted in something that does AoE damage, that's bad. And Stun, which basically skips your turn. When I say I have had Naya stunned so many times and her become entirely useless because of it sometimes, it's been a big issue. This is just a cheaper version that starts Shell, just Shell, Barrier. Seep and Foot Wraps allow you to move farther. Haste allows you to basically move sooner. And then, you know, there's just all types of stuff here. The best, you know, being at the top, but all of the stuff in the beginning isn't bad at all. Like, I would get a vial, I've gotten a vial of spring water before. I used it on Fizzgig even towards the end of the game. So now I'm gonna go into the classes, and then I'll probably end this video there. Because I'm just trying, you know, to keep everything nice and simple. So, what I'm going to do is explain, so there's Soldier, Scout, and Mender. And so if you've ever played other games, like, I don't know, World of Warcraft, or really any RPG, you know what a tank, rogue, basically. Think of it as like tank, damage, healer. And then you can mix them together. So usually you'll start up here with one of these. There's Soldier, which can lead you down the Paladin route. who are offensive focus physical damage dealers, and Stone Warden, which is also that. And each one can lead you to one of these. Now, by no means do you need to get to the end. It would be nice to have a Grave Dancer, Strategist, or Song Teller. They're really, really, really powerful. But by no means do you need to feel rushed to get any of these. I beat the game on normal mode without it, except for, I think, Ivo. He is a Song Teller. But I'll be entirely honest, I only used one healing spell on him, so I kind of wasted it, but it's okay. But most of these characters, I don't have, you know, any of those. So, can kind of start, there's tank, like damage, and then healer, and then they mix together. So you can kind of have like a tank who does heavy physical damage, but also has healing spells, which kind of reflects back here and here. And they're Bramble Sage, which means they can, you know, you can be a mage and do offensive spells. Or you can go fully into status effects and healing. Then there's Trackers who do a lot of ranged damage, but it's like physical ranged damage. And then there's Fast Melee. Then there's a Grave Dancer who do a ton of damage and who are really fast, but they do not have a lot of defense, so you need a good healer for that. And so I'm gonna go show you some abilities now. Like, she's a Bramble Sage, so she does a lot of damage. And so also, when you play, don't be afraid to use passive effects, because they're actually pretty good if you have like 2 passive effects active, because they can actually really help you. I know you want to, you know, deal a ton of damage through that, but they can be really useful. Like, I killed a lot of people with Deet. I know, Deet. Baby Child, she can do a lot of damage due to this, which when attackers attack you, you can deal damage right back at them, which can kind of save you sometimes. So I'm only gonna go over, I'm not gonna get deep into abilities. You know, I'll do some research and write something down, and when I finally get editing software, I'll go into deep detail, and I'll make a quicker, better video. But for now, I'm gonna talk about Mark. It reduces something's evasion for 3 turns, whoever you target with it, but it doesn't do much under Scout. But it's when you have another character, you can do a lot with it. So if you have marked on something for your abilities with Soldier, basically, you can use something called Aim Strike, which attacks an unmarked enemy, and you have 30% higher chance of doing critical damage, which can do 400 to 600 damage with Naya, who has the General's Hand Axe. Or Deet, if I go through her abilities, there's one in here. The Scathe ability I had that, you know, consumes mark, so it's good to have a character who can mark and a character who can deal damage and mark. Now, I don't have her job, I think, set in Paladin. I'll set it as primary so we can look at the abilities, so I can show you. But there's Double Strike. When I replay the game, I'm going to go full into Paladin. But if you have Double Strike 2, you can attack the marked target twice, which it does 200 to 400 damage. I know it says power 271, but if you can crit, it can do like 400 damage, and you hit it twice, which can do basically 400 to 800 damage and insta kill something. And that's what Tapper did in the game. You'll learn that I love her unconditionally. But so I believe that's like the basics. There are things, there are all sorts of abilities, and I'll go through them as I play. When I play, so I hope any new players found this helpful. Hopefully, you know, I tried my best to explain it. I'm not always great with words, But that's like just a basic overview of some simple abilities so you understand what each clan does, what each weapon does, so you can help make your characters and your team to your liking. So I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you have a great day.